and welcome everybody here to the Rec Innovation Lab at San Diego Miramar College. We're very happy to have you here. We're happy to have back with us some of our favorite guests, our favorite speakers, Gwen and Gaby, who are now in the second part of this great workshop series. And tonight they're going to be diving a little bit deeper into solving problems, into tell us a little bit about what we have in store for us tonight, Gwen.
Okay, I'm sorry, my camera did that thing, right? Where it changes, it zooms in or zooms out, whatever it may be. Hello, everyone. It's wonderful. It's so great to be here with this community again. Gaby and myself were private messaging right now while we were watching the videos and just saying how excited we are. And, you know, watching the videos, it just reminds us so much of why we continue these workshops. So like Tanya said, this is the second workshop that we have in this series. And I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen so we can get started while I'm telling you about what we're going to be talking about. So this is our second part, which is creative decision making. And what we are going to be talking about is really the whole process of making a decision, because there is an entire process and there are parts of it along your journey that sometimes impact how you make your decision. So we want to explore that with you, do a little self-awareness, because we always have to do that as part of our programming, and then just educate you on different ways, perspectives that can help you in being more creative, which is really what ultimately as entrepreneurs, as founders, and everyone is looking to do.
And I just wanted to remind everyone too, if you have any questions along the way, don't hesitate to ask, right? Put it in the chat. We're watching the chat, or if you want to just come out and ask them, we're okay with that. So however you'd like to get it out there. So I'm going to then hand it over to you. You're, I know, capable hands, and sit back and relax and enjoy the show, right?
Yes. So we are, let's see, why isn't this advancing? There it goes. Okay. So once again, just a quick little introduction. Gwen and Gaby. So this is our famous picture, Curls and Chardonnay. And Gaby, what were we saying? We're going to do an updated picture?
Yeah, we have to. I think, you know, we're getting into the fall. So instead of Chardonnay, we're going to be Curls and Cabernet.
Yes. We think that works as well, right? So Gaby and me each have our own, I'll call it company. I'll say that for myself as well. So we have our own company, and we have a great relationship, and really both passionate about helping others grow and helping people be better in whatever way that may be. And so we're excited to be here. Gaby, was there anything else that you wanted to add around your introduction?
No, I will say my name is Gaby, and I'm extremely happy to be here today. It's a great way to start the week. We've had a great productive Monday, and this is the cherry on top of the cake to finish the day and get us started for a very productive week. So thank you all for being here today and sharing your Monday afternoon with us.
Yes. So go ahead. I'm going to do math, Gaby, while you're talking, because this number is already fascinating me, about 35,000.
Okay, so we thought we would start this afternoon our conversation with a little fun fact that actually made our eyes go super wide. So did you know that the average adult makes around 35,000 decisions a day? 35,000 decisions. And they can be anywhere from like a simple decision, like what am I going to wear today? Although that never seems to be an easy decision for me. But it could also go to,
you work from home, hopefully it's a little easier.
You know, except the shoes, because that with being remote, I don't have to think about shoes anymore, not so often at least. So it could go anywhere from those simple decisions, what am I going to eat, what am I going to wear, to do I have enough energy to continue with my business? Do I partner up with somebody to shift the perspective of my business? Do I have my strategic plan in place? Do I hire people? Do I fire people? And anywhere in between those decisions. So 35,000 decisions a day. And entrepreneurs or CEOs, that number can be slightly higher than this. Gwen and I were talking earlier this afternoon. We actually started doing some math because we
Yeah.
came down to realizing that
Yeah, so if it's 35 decisions a day, let's think about that in the time of the day, right? There's 60 seconds in a minute, 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour. That's 3,600 seconds. Let's multiply that by the average amount of time that we're awake in a day, which is 12 hours. So that's 43,200 seconds that we are awake. We're making 35,000 decisions. So that means every about second and a half, you're making a decision. That's a lot, right? What do we think? That's a lot. That's a lot of decisions that are being made. So
I have a question.
Oh,
So
sure.
I feel like everything you do is a decision. So when are you not making a decision? Because I feel like if I'm staring, like let's say I'm just staring at a wall, like I'm making the decision to not look anywhere else. You know what I'm saying? Like when are you not having a decision? I feel like everything is a decision. Sorry for this kind of question, but
no, I mean, I that is exactly the point, right? So that's an amazing comment. That is exactly the point. Where in the day are we not really making a decision, whether we're conscious about it or unconscious about it? So we thought we would start with that fun fact and a perfect segue into what I want to show you next. So our next question, given that we make all of those decisions, or as Jacoby is saying, we might always be making a decision or a choice at least, how do we make these decisions? We were, speaking of decisions, we weren't sure how to label this, right? We wanted to ask, how do we make decisions? Or also, how good are we at making decisions? So for that, we have a poll for you to get everybody, energized and participating. We have a few questions for you, and feel free to take notes, and then we'll talk as we go through the questions. So, Patrick, can we please launch the first poll?
You got it. Is it up?
Yep, I can see it. Okay, good. Perfect. So the first question that we have for you today is, how would you go about making an important decision between two equally good things? Here are 4 choices for you. Pick one, pick the best that describes your process. Number one.
Can you see the poll to select something? Because I saw I'm sorry, for me, it showed results.
I can't select it either.
Yeah,
I can't select either.
Yeah, okay, so
Okay, now,
perfect.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you, Gwen. I wasn't paying attention. I was just reading the slide.
I was trying to answer. That's why.
Thank you, Gwen. Thank you, Patrick. Okay, here we go. So how would you go about making an important decision between two equally good things? Choice number 1, I would just flip a coin. 2, I would consider all the pros and cons of each before making the decision. I would ask everyone's opinions and go with the most popular one, or I will just try and go with my gut feeling. Pick one, and we'll see what you think.
What if people go with their gut feeling with the one that they choose? We already have to make decisions.
Yes, that's the point.
All right. I think we got everybody. I'm going to end the poll.
All right.
And can you share the results?
Yep. Can you guys see them now?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Wow. So 59% of us said I would consider all the pros and cons of each before making a decision. Wow. What surprises me the most is I would ask everyone's opinion and go with the most popular one. Very interesting.
No results. And then flipping a coin, I think that was one person.
Yes.
You're right. Yeah, it was one person.
It was, look at that. A good practice if it works for you.
Excellent. All right. We can go. Okay, very good. We're taking notes of the trends here. Let's go to the next poll.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Poll number 2.
We can't answer it.
Yes.
Again?
Oh, well,
We can.
we can. I
Okay.
apologize. Oh, I got excited, Patrick. I'm sorry.
I was like, oh no.
Poll number 2. How do you make simple decisions like what to have for lunch? You have 4 choices there. I have a set routine to minimize the number of decisions I need to make. I pretty much do things at random or choose whatever is most convenient. I will ask for people's advice and recommendations and go based on that. Or this usually isn't a problem because I just go with what I feel like and what I actually want. Pick your choice.
I think we can close
Hey,
it.
written on 2 people. Okay, yeah, we'll end it.
Mhm.
All right. Pretty even across the board, honestly.
Hmm.
Wow, look at this. I pretty much do things at random or choose whatever it is most convenient was the choice. That's the most popular one today. Very nice. A few people have a set routine. And here we have a little bit more people asking for people's opinions. And all right, so gut feeling, it seems like. Excellent. So let's go to the next one.
So just to let you know, we were going to do this as an assessment, but it was easier as a poll. So you just have 2 more. 2 more. All right.
Question number 3. You're in a relationship, but your heart isn't really in it anymore. How do you decide to break up? Choice number 1. If it doesn't feel right, then I will tell them. Choice number 2. I will leave it until I finally snap and break up with them in the middle of an argument. Number 3, I will discuss with my closest friends and family and have their input before making a decision. And last one, I consider when I stand to gain and lose by breaking up with them and then make a decision based on that. Pick your choices.
This is an interesting question. I'm curious to see the results.
You know, and here's another thing that I really appreciate is that all of the examples have demonstrated how expanded our decision making is in our life, right?
Right.
We went from lunch to a relationship.
All right, let's see what everybody said. Here we are.
Look at this. If it doesn't feel right, then I will tell them. All right, very decisive. I will leave it until I finally snap and break up with them in the middle of an argument. Was not very popular. And then the next one is, I will just look at this. In terms of relationships, more people said they will discuss with their closest friends and family and have their input. Interesting. Very good.
That makes sense. I feel like that's people will be more likely to consult their friends for relationship issues.
Sure. It kind of makes sense. Absolutely. And I think we had one more, didn't we, Patrick?
We've actually got 2 more. If we got time for that, we got 2 more questions still.
Okay, let's do it. How long does it take you to make a big decision? It's immediate and spontaneous. It can take a while, but I hate stretching things out for too long. It can be immediate or long. It depends on how long it takes me to figure out how I'm really feeling, or I can mull over it for so long that I never come to a decision. Which one best describes you? Pick one.
This must be a big decision. People are taking their time.
Or they're tired of making decisions.
Right. All right, here's the results.
Okay.
Oh, look at that. It could be long or not immediate or long. It depends on how long it takes me to figure out how I'm feeling about the decision. Very interesting. So when it comes to a big decision, then we're putting up, it seems like a little bit more thought to that and to how we feel about it. Very interesting. And the last one, last but not least.
Last one.
Yeah.
No,
Last
we'll
one.
have to stop making decisions.
That's right. Last one. If you couldn't make a decision, which of these options would you choose as a solution? Choosing at random, having someone else make the decision for you, waiting for some sort of sign to tell you what to do, or making a pro and con list? Which one best describes you?
All right, here we are.
Wow, that didn't take that long, huh?
No.
Right. Making a pro and con list. So if I can't really make an immediate decision, then making a pro and con list seems to be a good methodology. Oh, and then 40% waiting for someone, for some sort of sign to tell us what to do. Yeah, we leave it to the universe, right?
Right.
To decide for us. All right, very good. Well, thanks everybody for playing with us. This particular quiz is not necessarily scientifically validated, but it really gives us information in terms of decision-making style. And you saw there's a trend in the choices that we gave you. Some speak to more analysis than others. Some speak to feelings. Some speak to strategic thinking or planning. And we're going to go into those aspects of decision-making in just a minute. So thank you so much for participating in this quiz. We're going to go to the next slide, Gwen.
Of course, my Wi-Fi acts up right now. Are you able to hear me at least if I turn off my camera? Okay, good. All right, I'll keep my camera off because my Wi-Fi was acting up. So I want to share that from the poll that we just did right now, for most of the answers, whether it was either the first choice or it was the second choice, but it was something around your gut feeling. Something around how you were feeling was always up there for every single one. I was keeping score in a sense because we wanted to get a little bit of a pulse of how people in this group make decisions. So in thinking about that with your gut feeling, making those kinds of decisions, another part of it is what gets in the way sometimes of when we have to make decisions. So the very last question explored that, right? When you can't make a decision, what do you do? But well, the question is, why can't you make a decision? What is getting in your way? So I'd love to hear if you want to type in the chat, when you think of times that you've had to make decisions and it's been difficult for you to come to a decision, or maybe it's taken you a little bit longer, or it was just a big decision for you to make, what was in your way for making that decision? If you could type in the chat and we'll discuss.
Now, Alexandra earlier had actually dropped in a comment in the chat and she was asking, well, what about procrastinating? That's a decision.
Yes, it is. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. We'll bring that in. Okay, so this one says, I'm worried the decision will be wrong and it takes me longer to decide. Okay, so there is that part of being right or wrong. Okay, all right. When both decisions seem like a good option, so I don't know which to choose. Not knowing the definitive outcome, the worry or uncertainty of failure, wanting to slow myself down internally, what order to do things in, what I want to do versus how it will make someone else feel. Oh, very good point. Absolutely. So yes, there are so many things wrapped up in all of those things, in all of those responses, and I'm gonna address some of those. I'm gonna start with procrastination because that was brought up earlier, and say that in procrastinating, sometimes it's delaying it intentionally, maybe because of how it makes you feel, maybe because of what the decision will bring about emotionally, which is one of the main reasons why people delay making conversations, is you get really caught up in the emotions of it. However it is that you're feeling about it, it could be fear, it could be jealousy, it could be the fear, and the fear can be so many different things, right? There's the failure part, there's the anxiety, all these different emotions that come, the fear of uncertainty, that can really, really be what happens. So usually a good tactic for this is to pretend that you're helping a friend, because then that's when you can be in a little bit more of an objective role and take yourself outside of that so that there isn't so many feelings. And a lot of the reasons that were listed that people talked about were connected also to feelings. The procrastination part is a way in which you can avoid that as well. And procrastination is just going to make the decision, it could impact also the decision because the process is taking longer, so it'll just make it worse. If you're already afraid of the outcome and then you delay it more, it could make that process worse. Something else is another reason why people do this, when you were talking about uncertainty and failure and such, is sometimes we go with a decision that we're already invested in simply because we put work into it, even though it's not the best option for us. So we're not really able to look long-term or big picture. We just stick to what we're doing already because we feel a sense of commitment, which is not necessarily always the best tactic. So we have to remove ourselves and think about the greater picture in terms of how it helps you. And last but not least is sometimes you just need to sleep on it. You need a little more time. When you get a good night's sleep, you wake up with a fresh mind, and in the morning you have a clear mind to make a better decision, and you've also allowed a little bit more time to pass so that you can think through what the process will be, what the outcomes will be, what the consequences are, and you can also not be so into the decision with your emotions. So those are some ways that can address the things that get in the way when we're trying to make decisions. Oh, Gabby, you're on mute.
Good. Hi. All right. So before we move on to the creative thinking process that we want to share with you today, there were a couple more comments in the chat. And as we go through the presentation, I think we're addressing some of these, I want to do what I want to do versus how I make somebody feel, whether I can do it or not. And somebody's mentioning a great study made by Adam Grant in terms of procrastination and how sometimes it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Because and when you just said it in the last thought, sometimes we just need a little bit more time. And as the thought is lingering in our minds, then we can come to a creative way of making the decision. So procrastination, it depends on the decision that we're making. And we're going to see this creative process that we'll share with you. And that might help also to decide, right, if that's what I need or not.
Yeah, I would say, I would add to that as well, is that really the intention is for us to explore and learn different ways and educate ourselves so that we have different tools available. So whatever the decision is that you're making, you know, and are educated in various different ways. But there's no one way. Absolutely. So for procrastination, I would say for some decisions, it may not work. For other ones, it may be, like she said, provide productivity and clarity. So I'm going to keep that in mind. Next time I procrastinate a decision, I'm going to say, I was trying to be productive.
Yeah, that's good. We refer, I mean, the more we reframe how we think about it, the more productive we can become. So there are a lot of scientific validated methodologies for decision making. There's the tons. If you Google decision making models, you're going to find a lot, and some are more complex than others, right? And so some might be useful for specific decisions or specific processes than others. And rather than talking about a model today, a model for decision making, we thought we would share a creative way that we have used with clients in the past, with our own teams in the past, that really provokes that creativity in thinking and then allows for a great process to make a decision or to solve a problem. And some of you might have already learned about this particular idea. It's called the 6 Thinking Hats. And it was developed, or it was created by Edward de Bono back in the 1980s, though. I mean, now don't dismiss it just yet because it's not super new. It works. I have worked with teams where, decisions would take a week to be made, for example, like in strategic planning or process improvement kind of scenarios. And as we worked with this particular methodology, this particular team was able to narrow down their decision-making time to like a couple of days, in some instances, a couple of hours. So productivity really and happiness in the process of problem solving or decision making really comes to life when we talk about the 6 thinking hats. Now, if you were in the last workshop, we talked about emotions, and something that you probably know about us by now is that we like color and energy, and we are big system thinkers, Gwen and I. So when we talk about this workshop, so we talk about something that's really useful that you can apply the moment we close the Zoom room tonight. So here's the idea of the 6 thinking hats. You see that they're colored, right? And the color is a very important piece of methodology. The hats themselves are very important. So we dare you to be creative in using the methodology with your teams or with yourself. The fantastic thing about this particular process is that it can be done individually, like whenever you have a big decision or even a simple one, but a simple one might not require the whole process, right? When you're faced with a big decision individually, you can put on that particular hat, whether it is physically or you just imagine that you have that hat on, and shift your thinking. The main idea of this process is to simplify things. We talked earlier in the presentation that we make almost a decision a second, right? Or as Jacoby very eloquently said, when aren't we making a decision? And that can lead to fatigue and frustration and procrastination. So the idea is that if we take things and we do one thing at a time, we can be a lot more productive, we can have more fun in the process, and we can be a lot more creative. So let me go over the description of the hats. So let me start with the white hat. And I think we can go to the next slide, Gwen, and I'll tackle both at the same time. So the white hat. The white hat is the information hat, if you will. It's the hat that looks for the facts. And we ask ourselves, or we ask in the team, what kind of information do we have already about the problem at hand or about the decision at hand, right? What do we know already? What information we might need? What do we not know? What information would we like to have? Or how are we getting to that information? And it's really just about the facts. And you only talk about that or think about that when you're wearing the white hat. By the way, parentheses, when we are using it in teams, this technique can be used in many different ways. That's why we love it. It's very, very flexible. One, if we're doing your own brainstorming, you can switch hats as you need your focus to shift. If you're working with teams, the idea is that everybody in the team uses the same hat at the same time. Why, you might be asking? Well, because that way we get the team to focus on one thing at a time, and everybody's thinking the same terms. And how many of you have been in a room when we're trying to make a decision and everybody has an opinion and a feeling and a proposal or a question, and then it just gets more complex and more complex. The more voices there are in the room. So the technique allows us to just focus on one kind of thinking at a time and be a lot more proactive and more productive about it. So the whole team, imagine the production of ideas when we have that one hat in our head. So white hat, facts, information. The red hat, you're going to love this. I particularly love the red hat purely because I specialize in emotions, but also because when we're trying to decide to make a decision or solve a problem, we usually have feelings about it. So the red hat, when we put it on, when we actually think red hat, is about the emotion. Questions like, how do I feel about this right now? Or what's my intuition? Remember those gut feeling decisions? Here's what we can talk about it and just say it. in a group context, in an organizational context, or in a team context, like you all have your teams or your partners to work with. This is a moment where we can talk about the emotion of the decision without having to explain, without judgment, because everybody gets to do the same. That's why it's beautiful when the whole team uses the same hat at the same time. So everybody can just say, well, I don't know, there's something about it that doesn't feel right, and then expand on the feeling. And it's a beautiful space for just putting the emotion out there and move on with the rest of the thought process. So let me move on to the yellow hat. The yellow hat, similar to the emotions, if you see, these are not related, by the way, what we talked about last week, yet we can see a trend in colors in a way, right? So yellow, sunshine, hope, possibility. So the yellow hat is all about the good things, all about the positive things that we need to think about in terms of making the decision. Questions like, what are the good things about this particular thing? What are the strengths? What are the pluses? How will this particular decision help us? Why will it work? So the beauty of the yellow hat is this is intentional. When we put on the yellow hat, we are intentionally looking for the positive aspects of the decision. So we ask, why will it work? And then how can we make this work? So it's really forward thinking in terms of possibilities, which brings a lot of ideas, a lot of creativity into the conversation. Very deliberate, positive thinking when we're wearing the yellow hat. Let's move on to the next slide, please. Not that one. Okay, we're done. Okay.
Right? I just went too fast.
All right, so we got 3 more hats. The green hat, and the color of green, right? It's about growth, possibilities too. This is the creative mode hat. This is where the brainstorm about what other alternatives, what additional ideas, what is another way that we can do this? What is, again, in terms of possibilities, but this is the expansive thought of the alternatives, the creativity, the possibilities, everything that's possible. And that's the only thing that we talk about and that we brainstorm when we're wearing the green hat. Then we come to the blue hat. The blue hat is like the cool, collected, focus hat, right? This is where we talk about the process. What is our focus? What is the objective? What is the goal? What do we want to achieve with this decision? What thinking is needed? So this is the hat where we kind of think not only about the decision, but we think about thinking of the decision. This is the biggest thinking hat, I think. What have we done so far? What do we want to do next? What is the summary of our views? So this is the hat that allows us to check the process. This is where maybe, we tackle procrastination, or we decide that we need more time, right? And last but not least, the black hat. And the black hat is one of the most powerful. I mean, they're all pretty powerful, but the black hat is that devil's advocate hat, right? This is the hat where it's allowed to ask, what are the minuses about this option? Or what are the weaknesses? What might go wrong about the situation? This is the hat that's always asking, what if? Now, it's a very powerful hat. It's a very powerful tool. It's incredibly needed because it assesses the risk. It really let us put ourselves into what are the risks of this decision? What could be the worst case scenario for this decision? Now, the only cautious that I will say about the black hat is we shouldn't overuse it, right? Because we don't want to shift the conversation to everything that goes wrong. We also don't want to use it too early in the process, because it might then block creativity or the flow of ideation and innovation. So what questions do you have in terms of this technique for decision making? Or comments?
So I apologize. I actually dropped the call there, or dropped the Zoom for a minute. I don't know if anybody else is having issues with connectivity during the during the rainstorm, but I did see a couple questions in the chat when I came back. One of them was,
Which order?
which order? Which order?
All right, that's a perfect question. So the technique, as I said before, the technique is pretty flexible. The one thing that we want to keep in mind is the blue hat. We usually use it at the beginning just to decide how we're doing things, because it's the process thinking hat, right? And also towards the end to get a summary of where is it that we're going and what is it that we have accomplished and where do we want to go next. Usually there's no specific sequence to the order of the hats. In my experience, I usually try to leave the black hat towards the end of the conversation because we want to get that innovation and creativity and growth before we move on. And usually also the one that works very well right at the beginning is the white hat. Now, the idea, if I'm doing something just individually, like I'm brainstorming a big decision, I just use them as I need them. You know, I read more about it and then I use them as I need them. If we're working with teams or in groups, there's usually a facilitator in your meetings, or you as the CEOs, and you give it a thought. It's like, where do we want the conversation to go? What are the outcomes of that conversation? And then you use the sequence is not as important as the allowing the time for that group to think in the same terms and speak the same language for a little bit at a time. The other recommendation, and this is very important, is not just, sometimes you might not need all the hats either, right? Sometimes if it's just a brainstorming session, everybody puts on the green hat and the yellow hat, and then it's brainstorming away, right? One thing that I would say is if we are using all hats, which for big strategic planning meetings we usually do, I would allow a minute per hat. This technique is so effective that a minute per hat might be enough because everybody's thinking in the same terms, right? And later on we're gonna try to do it live, but usually 1 minute. The idea of the 1 minute is that everybody gets their ideas or their thoughts, not their ideas. Everybody gets their thoughts out in 1 minute, right? If the conversation is being really productive, you don't stop the clock. You let it flow, you let it flow, you let it flow. But if there's silence, like there's not so much more that people need to say or have to say, then that's where the 1 minute is super important, because then we move on to the next set of thinking and we reframe our thought process in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Great questions. What else?
Any other questions? If not, I think we can move on to this 1 minute activity you talked about.
Can you possibly go back to the slide with the other 3 hats really quickly? My screenshot didn't work.
Ben just dropped a question in the chat too.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Would it be the red hat to try to escape the direction we're going? I'm not sure I understand the question. What do you mean?
I guess I mean sort of like the company, like say you're like a Yahoo of businesses, and then you're going down, and then you're trying to escape a direction that you're going, and you're brainstorming your way out of it.
Well, so that's why I think that's the idea behind everybody has the same hat on when you're in a group meeting, because then everybody speaks the same, right? So everybody will put their feelings out there. So there's really no escape. What we're trying to avoid to do with this technique is exactly what you're describing, where let's say how many of you have been in groups trying to make a decision? Raise your hand. I think everybody, right? Mm-hmm. And then it could be chaotic, right? It could be chaotic. Two things about the red hat. One, it allows for the sharing of feelings in a very objective way, which is a little bit of an irony because we're talking about feelings, right? But because we all know that it's the red hat and it's time to talk about feelings, like our gut, our intuition, our feelings, it's an incredible opportunity that everybody has the same opportunity to share in the same context. So in that way, you cannot just say later in the conversation, well, I don't feel right about it, because the conversation won't allow it. Does that make sense? If you're using the technique for that brainstorm of 6-12 minutes, then everybody's thinking along the same lines at the same time. That's the beauty of the technique.
Oh,
Does that answer the
okay.
question, Benjamin? Was it Benjamin?
Yeah, thank you. So I guess you're going along the same lines while you're in a certain hat. Okay.
Yes, everybody. If it's a group meeting, everybody wears the same hat at the same time. Now, you can play with it a little bit. I have worked with teams where we have each one person wear a different hat, but the objective of the meeting was not to make a decision as a team. It was more like a collaboration kind of exercise, if that makes sense. So if we're using this particular technique to make a decision, then the rule, for lack of a better term right now, the rule would be that a team, we all use the same hat at the same time, because then we all bring our opinion or our thought, more than opinion, we all bring our thought to the table using the same context, and it provides for safety of speech, if you will. I have used this particular theory for collaboration and for team building. And in those cases, we might play with it in a different way, like everybody wears a different hat, and then we'll see where it goes. But if you're really trying to solve a problem as a team or make a decision as a team, then it's important that the whole team wears the same hat at the same time. Good question. Good question.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. If there's no other questions, let's go ahead and practice this. So what we have here for you are just a couple sentences to remind you the different hats that exist. So, because for our conversation, we're going to do exactly what Gabby said, which is we're going to spend a minute in each hat. So what we need from you now is, can somebody share a big decision that you've had to make, or even maybe one that you have to make right now, and that you will volunteer so that we utilize it for this exercise? Anybody want to share?
Selecting like health insurance. That's always tough.
Yes, it is. It is very tough. Absolutely. So, okay. So we will approach it with each one of these hats. And so we're going to spend about a minute, and I'll have a timer. Or Gabby, I think Gabby, you're timing. And so we're going to, I'd like you to share if you want to unmute yourself, if you want to type it in the chat, but we're all going to be wearing the same hat at the same time for that minute. So we're going to go through this. Okay. So selecting health insurance. Jessica, can you tell us a little bit more in terms of, is it just for yourself? Is it for a family? Give us a little more around this decision.
Yeah. So I actually just turned 26. So I got kicked off of my dad's insurance. So I had to actually do this. And it's just for myself. But, you kind of want to keep it comparable, but try to lower costs.
Okay. All right. So that's all part of it. So let's start off with the blue hat. We said, because the blue hat is a good kind of even one to kick off your process. So Gabby, go ahead, put 1 minute, blue hat. And so anybody, if you'd like to unmute yourself. So what would be questions that you would ask, or what perspective would you have under the blue hat?
The first thing I would do is create a pro-con list, show what benefits I currently have, what benefits I don't use, and what benefits I would like to use that I would like to have because I will use, and then create a spreadsheet and do plans accordingly. But I put everything in a spreadsheet. even to divorce my husband. Spreadsheet, no spreadsheet.
Gabby and Gwen,
He's gone now.
Gabby and Gwen, I just want to let you guys know that we only have about 5 to 7 minutes left.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, we'll continue on, don't worry. All right, so we have listing pros and cons in whatever format that may be, spreadsheets and such, whichever. Okay, so this will help, right, in the thinking process and such. That one can also be possibly one of the other hats. Anyone else? Anything else that you would do in the blue hat?
I will be thinking either getting a new car or use my used car, depending on the insurance provider and how much it costs for both sides.
Okay.
All
Ian,
right.
okay. That's another question.
That's 1 minute.
That's 1 minute. Okay, so that's another decision, Ian. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so with the blue hat, it was just kind of to manage the process and to kick it off. Let's move on now to the white hat. We'll stick to the problem of selecting health insurance, right? So the white hat calls for information, all the information that you may need. So I'm actually going to, because we are limited a little bit with time. Oh, I'm sorry, we have some in the chat. Oh, no, we don't. What was shared by, I believe, Rachel, where she said that she would state pros and cons and such a little bit. That's a little bit of the white hat as well. When we're writing down what our facts are, all the information that we have, that's what you're listing there. So yes, we're going to skip the white hat. We're going to move on now. The yellow hat. The yellow hat symbolizes brightness and optimism. Gabby, can you give us a minute under this hat? And please share either in the chat or unmute yourself. If you're wearing the yellow hat for our decision we have to make about health insurance, what are questions that you're asking? What perspective are you bringing?
You could find a better health insurance plan that has
Yeah.
better benefits.
Better benefits. Yes. Well said, Angela. Okay. You could select something better than what you already have. Great.
Or you could find one with the lower premium.
Lower premium. We'll say better coverage, better cost wise. Exactly. Anyone else?
You have 10 seconds.
Okay.
You might
look at
find
it.
one that your doctor's in network.
Yeah. Find one where your doctor's in network. Excellent. Absolutely. Okay, great. All right, now we're going to go ahead and skip over. We're not quite doing a minute because we are short on time, but I want at least to try 2 more. I want to try the red hat, right? So for a couple seconds here, if you were to approach this decision of what type of health insurance that you need to select, what are questions you would ask or your perspective with the red hat? Remember, it signifies feelings, hunches, and intuition.
What not brands, what companies do I have access to? Like, I don't like that company. I don't like that company.
Sure.
Or, like shopping around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So that's almost like brand relationships, right? So maybe your options aren't necessarily brands that you like, that you respect, that you want to work, that you would want to work with. Absolutely.
On top of that, past customer service experiences.
Good. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And let's say reputation, right? With that, right? If you've had direct experiences, you're reading reviews or from friends, family members that you're hearing, fear that the new insurance will not cover a medication. Yes. Right? Maybe there's certain consistent care that you need or medication. And what if I can't? That's a fear that you have there.
That was a minute.
All right. Okay. Last one we're going to do is the black hat. The black hat, just because this is a powerful hat that's also a positive contributor to the conversation. So just what questions would you ask? What perspective would you have with the black hat?
I would think worst case scenario, what is my maximum yearly output, my deductible, and my, what is it called? The max that you pay. So Devil's black hat judgment, I would think worst case scenario, how much would this put me out versus the cost of premiums?
Yes.
Sure. Cost, an important element of the black hat.
Yes.
I would just say, what if you don't like it? Like if you pick it and you're stuck with it for a year and it sucks and you're like, oops, I made a bad choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's something to keep in mind.
Is that the way our insurance is currently set up? That if you do pick it, you're stuck with it, you can't change at any time?
Typically, yes, there is like a calendar year, November, October, November, and then you're usually locked in unless you go private and pay directly, which is a lot more expensive.
Okay, thank you.
Look at that. We're all learning. We're all learning, even about in open enrollment windows.
Yes.
All right. Anything else with the black cat?
Maybe I should get a job. Sorry. But
Maybe you should get a job.
Yeah.
Get better insurance. Yes,
True.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going to add to this one, and I'm going to say that for me, a risk, a danger that I see is at the end of the day, am I going to have the quality care that I need in the event of an emergency? You know, if something happens, am I going to get the coverage, or am I going to get stuck with all these bills or not get good care? Yeah. Okay. All right. So see, you can kind of see from this conversation that we had, we're assessing all different parts. We're looking at it big picture, and we're really breaking apart this decision that we have to make that can support. We did it as a group now, but if you had to do this alone, this would be a great exercise that you could do. Or as Gabby explained, when you're doing it as a team. But it really, really helps in people talking through, sharing how they're feeling, what they're thinking, and in some way forming an alignment so that the decision is made together and people feel good about it. So there's more buy-in, and people are also much more part of whatever the final decision was.
Sure. So at the end, the technique, it really, the use of the hats is really to gather as much information as possible in a very objective way so that we can make the decision. And we'll leave you with the words of the brilliant Stephen Covey, where, you know, he said, where we are the creative force of our life, and it is through our decisions more than our conditions that we can accomplish our goals. So like you guys eloquently said, we are constantly in choice and making these decisions. And we wanted to show you one creative way to approach the conversation and to get our minds to think in a different way to help making decisions a little bit easier.
So we don't have any time for questions if you'd like, but if you'd like to, if you have any other questions, feel free to stick around. We'll be here a couple of minutes, or if you want to type them in the chat. We'd like to thank everyone so much for joining us. I think, yes, I mean, turn my camera on.
I was going to say, is there an email if they do have a question that they could reach you at, or find you on LinkedIn, probably the best way, or?
Yes, absolutely. We can also put email in. I'll put my email in the chat as well, but the QR code does connect with us.
Oh, I see it right there. Thank you so much. And thank you all for coming here. Don't forget to fill out the survey. There's a survey that just went out in the chat. Please do complete that survey, and then we see some the emails there. Thanks, everyone. We will see you all at the next workshop. Have a great evening. Those of you who have class, I'll see you in class. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.